beloved continent and way forward. To my right, Honorable Peter Obi, same thing, same message. The world at large, they know that Africa's future is in the hands of our youth. So New Africa Foundation specifically requested us to come and address African youth, starting with the youth in Ghana. And from what I'm hearing, the youth had actually come from all over Africa, and some came from outside Africa, specifically to hear the message of empowerment, the message about our future, the message about the miseducation of not only our youth, but us as Africans, the message about empowering our children and letting them know that now it is the time for us to do what we must do to take our Africa back. For far too long, we have been lied to. For far too long, we have been miseducated. And so as elders, those of the ones who are sitting with me today, and many others, we understand that we have failed our youth. But we do have a responsibility to make it right. And we do know that with our little wisdom and the energy and the intelligence of our youth, together, we can take our Africa in a new direction. That is what we came here to do. And that is what New Africa Foundation has asked us to do. We do know that our leaders cannot lead us on their own. They need all of us. So the message that we were going to deliver to our youth today was the message of hope, the message of resilience, and the message that says the Africa we want can only be built by us for us. And for us to succeed at doing so, we must be united. That the African youth are Africa's future. Without them, there is no future for Africa. And as elders, we have a responsibility to share with them the truth and nothing but the truth. That is the message that we came here to deliver. That is what New Africa Foundation had requested us to do. We may not be at the convention center, but we intend to continue to preach the gospel of truth until we reach the promised land. I have no doubt in my mind that we will get there. Because Africa, the Africans, the people I like to describe as the beautiful, intelligent, sophisticated, highly adaptable, and totally indestructible human beings, the mothers and fathers of humanity, we will get to the promised land. Woo! And that's why we're here.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Mama Africa, Dr. Arikana, for leading the way. The most objective, fearless, and decisive mother we have known in Africa. Before we get to Prof, I'd like to go to your right. Prof, right? Okay, let's have Prof respond to this, and then we can move to your right. Professor P.O.
Thank you very much. My good sister, Dr. Arikana, has spoken for me, and I believe for all of us. We came here to Accra, Ghana, to share our message. It's the message of hope. It's the message that Africa needs at this time. And there is no better place in the continent of Africa to begin that message than Accra, Ghana. It is in this Accra, Ghana that the Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah, almost 67 years ago, spoke to the world and told the world that the independence of Ghana meant nothing if the continent of Africa was not free. 67 years later, we were congregating here in Accra in the very same place where the founding fathers and mothers of Ghana congregated to share the message of hope. Invited as we were by the New Africa Foundation, with one single instruction that we have lamented for too long, agonized for too long, and the time is now to organize. That is the innocent message that we came here to deliver. And in a manner totally inexplicable to us, we are not at that venue. But is it not the wise to say, when the world serves you a lemon, ask not for an orange, make yourself lemonade? We are here, therefore, to say that the message will be alive and well. And you who are here, young and old, you are the conduit via which we are now telling the world that the journey of hope continues apace, not only within the continent of Africa, which is the mother continent, but to Africans in the diaspora. I have no doubt in my mind that there is a conspiracy of sorts by the elements that it should happen the way it has happened. So this is not an occasion for lamentation. It is an occasion for redoubling our efforts. And our presence here in Accra, Ghana, my good friend, Honorable Obi, my dear sister, Dr. Rikana Chihombri Kwao, this is the occasion for which the English word serendipity was created. It is a serendipitous occasion that heralds a great future for the continent of Africa. So that looking forward, a meeting such as this will happen not only here in Accra, Ghana, but I look forward to a meeting such as this taking place in Ouagadougou, in Burkina, taking place in Dakar, in Senegal, in Nairobi, in Kenya, in Johannesburg, in South Africa, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, because this is about the continent of Africa. And we say this at a time when we know that Africa has promised to herself that we are going to make more intimate our interaction. This is why the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is headquartered here in Accra, Ghana. This Accra, Ghana is where all Africans of goodwill pay homage. Because out of this Accra, Ghana, there was a great son, the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah. Shall be well with Accra, Ghana.
Thank you. Nobody says it with such clarity and courage. Professor PLO understands both the context and the concept, and it's upon the heritage of people like this that the new Africa will definitely be born, no doubt. Before we go to the question, I want to ask one of the most feared man in Nigeria right now, if I would say, Mr. Peter Obi.
Well, after listening to Prof and Doctor, I don't know whether I still have anything to contribute to this. But to your question, our reason for coming to, let me start by thanking the New Africa Foundation for their invitation and organizing this event. Like the previous speakers have said, we might not be at the convention, but that will not stop the conversation. We only shifted venue So the conversation continues. We're in Ghana to start a conversation about Africa. Africa for too long has suffered, and everybody knows the reason why Africa has suffered. People can try to present it in different stages. The Prof speaks about it every day. Africa has been going through what it's going through because of what I always say, that it is due to one problem: leadership. It is failed leadership over the years that brought Africa where it is. I want to start a conversation because of what Dr. Arikana has said, talking to the youth of Africa. No continent in the world today has the potential of Africa. Not one. We are the second largest in terms of population and size, but our potential is far greater than even number one, because today Africa is the only continent that have a population of 1.1 billion youths, energetic, talented, ready to leave the world in different areas of the world. Africa is home to the biggest, highest amount of natural resources, from minerals to, we have 65% today of the world all cultivated arable land. So imagine what we can do. We can feed the world. We can do everything. But ironically, because of what I started with, failed leadership over the years, Africa is also home to the highest number of poor people. Out of the 700 million people in extreme poverty today, 431 million lives in Africa. Over 30% of our population. If you go to multidimensional poverty, out of 1.1 billion, over 60% is in Africa, with Congo and Nigeria leading. Today, in the surface of the world, Congo has the highest amount of natural, call it minerals, over 24 trillion. Nigeria has similar situation. You can extrapolate Congo situation to all over Africa, where they have everything, but they are producing poverty. It cannot continue with our youths. With the energy they have, they can lead the world in technology, in health, in entertainment, in everything. All they want is leadership, purposeful leadership. Africa has what is, look at its wealth, resources, shamelessly stolen and put in private pockets. It cannot continue. So we're just here to continue conversation. It's not about any country, anything, but talking to the youth of Africa to know that they can change the world. They can change the way things are in Africa. Africa should not be a continent where people come to beg or plead for aid. We should be contributing to aid of other people with the resources we have. And that's what Africa should be. Their own Africa should be. That's all the conversation is all about. It's about the future of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Peter Obi. And I dare say that the peace, in quote, that is enjoyed in Nigeria today negative or positive, he's responsible for it. Because he has refused the violent way, and it's very good to say it in a place like Ghana. And some of us took to the streets. We were willing to bring Nigeria to our knees so that we can rise up again. But he seems to have an ideology, and in the little time I spent with him, I could understand that. America and Europe are all built on genocide. They just wipe out the people and took. So Africa is shaping a completely new definition and dimension. Nigeria speaks 600 languages. That is I don't know even how to put it. But to manage that diversity, and it's something we will do and we can do, to share something that has never existed in the continent of the world. This is what has been given to us to do. And so I want to thank you, sir, for responding to what you said, because truly it's only leadership that can do that, and you're speaking to the people who will take that. We'll take a few more questions. This is so beautiful happening here today. Please, your name and your question.
My name is Kobiche. I'm a Ghanaian blogger. So I'm very excited. First of all, I like the fact that there's no New Ghana Foundation, but it is New Africa Foundation. Now, one of our major problems we have in Africa is the illiteracy rate and the mindset of the people. As leaders, how are we going to consciously change the mindset of the people to receive the change that we all demand for? And also make sure that education will be able to go down to every African child, so that as they grow up, their mindset for change will be able to, grab the knowledge that everybody who wants power wants to, appeal to. Because for instance, if I come to you and I tell you that I'm giving you sugar for you to vote for me, if you are illiterate, the probability of the person convincing you is high. But if you are literate and you know your power, I doubt people will use just mere material things
to get to you. Thank you. I think that's a very powerful question. Mama, I think you need to respond to that.
Yes, that's a very interesting question. And I need you guys to pay attention to what I'm getting ready to say. You raised a very important issue that you said, being literate or illiterate. But I'll tell you, our issues as Africans today are issues of the mind. The most dangerous African of today is an African who is colonized, educated or not. Coming from Zimbabwe, I can honestly tell you that the people who are moving Zimbabwe in terms of the awakening are the villagers. They seem to have a better understanding of what is really going on and are less likely to be sold, are less likely to sell their souls. And you must look at the people around you. Some of the most difficult people, I was called by the Africa group at the World Bank one time to address them for their annual event. And I went through all the issues and the pillars of why Africa is where Africa is, and I analyzed the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization that the 14 African former French colonies were made to sign. I thought everybody understood. But at the end of it, 2 African-born economists working for the World Bank come to me and said, "But Ambassador, why do you keep talking about the Berlin Conference? It's a thing of the past." And to my utter shock, I'd gone through the process of explaining the Berlin Conference and that it is a policy that was put in place in order to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. And that as long as we have a country called Togo, as long as we have a country called Burkina Faso, as long as we have a country called Malawi, we are defeated. Intentionally so. So these 2 economists working for the World Bank are the same ones now that are being used as instruments of our own self-destruction. They're the ones that are being sent to Africa to sell policies that are detrimental to Africa's progress. So the question then becomes, what is our education doing for us? And it goes back to the miseducation. The people who are in power are the ones who are failing to stand up and challenge those who are raping us in broad daylight. Pardon my choice of words. I was once asked by one African, Ambassador, let's try to be nice to these Westerners. Let's not be too direct as we challenge them. And I did ask this brother of mine, I said, my brother, help me out. How do I tell a man who is raping me to rape me nicely? I said, help me with the language. And this was an educated professor who is advising me to be nice. How long am I going to continue to be nice? Those are the educated people who are sitting in the boardrooms and they choose to be mute. And when they are mute while representing us, that means 1.4 billion Africans are mute. It is not the villager who is sitting at the boardroom table. It is the elite, the educated. So my son, what is our education doing to us? What have we done to undo the colonial education? I hear right here in Ghana, perfect example. There's not a single Kwame Nkrumah book that is required reading in the Ghanaian educational system. Whose problem is that? Most African countries, our educational system is still the colonial educational system. So what do you expect from the leaders that we have today if their education remains colonized? So may I say, the most dangerous person for Africa today is a colonized African. And we must challenge each and every one of us to have a serious conversation with the image in the mirror. Are you colonized? Where do you stand when it comes to the issues to do with Africa? How do you feel about the continued exploitation of Africa? How do you feel about neocolonization, imperialism? Do you even understand it? Do you even know what the Berlin Conference means when it comes to your ability to buy bread, to your ability to get a job? Can you connect the dots back to the policies that are designed to keep us where they want us to be? It is the elite, it is the educated who are refusing to challenge the status quo and speak on our behalf, educated or not. So I'd like to answer your question by saying our miseducation is what is leading us to the Africa that we are today, an Africa that cannot stand up and defend our turf with facts, with our truths. Ours is a simple issue. You see, truths and facts, these are constants that never change. All we gotta do is stand up. I like to end by saying, some of you have seen a poster. There were black men who were bending over, and there was a table on their backs. And at the bottom, it simply said, and on top, of course, sitting around the table, were white people who were feasting. And the caption simply said, all we gotta do is stand up. Mm-hmm. Why have we failed to stand up?
Thank you. Thank you. At this point, I'm going to say that while we bring this convention, this conversation, this press conference to a close, I want to demand on your wisdom, both of you, Prof, beginning from you, to look at the issues and give a closing remark. And I believe I can trust that once that is done from both of you, we can bring this to a close perfectly. Thank you. Prof.
Thank you very much. When I, several months ago, received a phone call from a young African, Nana Freedom Bediako, inviting me and others to this conference. This is what he told me in summary. Africa needs to speak about hope to our young sons and daughters. And that hope must not be based on sentimentalism or romanticism. It must be grounded on things that can change the lives of young Africans. It must be about what we can do in order to improve our agriculture, in order to add value to our resources, in order to give meaning to the things that will change people's lives. When I arrived in Accra, Ghana, yesterday, the 6th day of January, the year 2024, that young man, Nana Bediako, took us to a room and gave a demonstration of what him and his foundation think about African solution to African problems. How we can use our human and natural resources to change our circumstances so that we can be beggars no more. We were touched. And you who are present here, you who are journalists who will give the oxygen of publicity to what we are saying here today. I want to tell you that Africa will only change, and change for the better, when our young men and women embrace that spirit, the spirit of personal sacrifice for the general good. It is not a journey for the faint-hearted. In that journey, you will have many hurdles. But when you face a hurdle, use it as a ladder. In that journey, you will cross many rivers. And when you cross one river, there will be many more rivers to cross. In that journey, you may climb and will climb many mountains. And when you climb one mountain, there will be more mountains to be climbed. And when I asked that young man, Nana Bediako, why a new dawn? He says there have been many dawns, but this is a new one, with a new meaning and a new resolve. We will begin to leave Accra, Ghana physically, but Accra, Ghana is our true emotional and intellectual north for Pan-Africanism. We'll come here again and again. If only to energize ourselves about which is good and right for the continent of Africa. Africa will rise, and this struggle for Africa is an intergenerational struggle. The baton that we now wield will be passed from generation to generation. Nana Bediako. Go forth with your new dawn.
Go forth.
In the knowledge that fortune favors the persistent, the patient, and the vigilant. Shall be well with you.